Welcome to the Intriguing Beings podcast with me, Roo Chater. Episode 7 with Sky Solbach. We've got a great episode for you this week, and I'd like to firstly thank everyone for the feedback on last week's episode with Pete Cabrina. I had some really great responses to that one, including someone who wrote in and said it was like the desert island discs for cool people, which I really liked. So thanks for getting in touch and letting me know that you're enjoying these. This week my guest is a guy called Sky Solbach. He's an American board shaper who's responsible for some of the most popular surfboards in the kitesurfing world. Together with his wife Kristin, he bought some land on Maui and they started building a house, which I found really interesting. I've been watching this story unfold on Facebook, and so I really wanted to have a chat with him about it. When I found out I was going to be in Tarifa this summer with Sky, I thought it was the perfect opportunity to sit down and ask him about the house that they built and the farm that they created, which at one point had over 50 chickens and loads of goats, as he and his wife tried to live a very sustainable life. We also talk about his travels, his early career, and there's a really interesting story about how he moved with his family from California to Bonaire, a Dutch-speaking island, where they had to learn the language and get in with the local vibe. Sky's a really interesting guy. He's super humble, really great to talk to, and I think you'll enjoy this episode. As ever, if you're enjoying these, please give them a share on social media, tell your friends about them, and if you feel like it, give us a 5-star rating on your app as well. Let's get into this week's episode with Sky Solbach. Hi, I'm sat here with Sky Solbach, a surfboard shaper from the island of Maui. He's not from there originally. He's an interesting guy. He's had quite a very interesting life, I would say, from where he started out to where he is now, and thought it'd be good to sit down with Sky and have a catch up and a bit of a conversation and see what he's up to now. Sky, you started life as a pro kiteboarder back in the day. You've been in the sport since the very inception.
Yeah.
How did you get into water sports and kiteboarding in particular?
Well, my parents, so I was born in California, Northern California, and my parents were big skiers, snow skiers when I was a kid, and so I kind of grew up my first 5 or 6 years in California. I remember going to the mountains with my parents skiing, and in the wintertime, obviously, and Lake Tahoe and places like that. And my parents in the summertime were really into windsurfing back then in the 80s, and so I learned to windsurf when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old.
Wow.
And,
super young.
Yeah, some of my first memories were just going to the beach with my dad and my older brother. I have an older brother, who's 2.5 years older than me, so he was obviously windsurfing before me, and we kind of pushed each other as we were growing up. And then when I was 8 or 9, maybe, we moved to the Caribbean.
Yep.
My parents were really fanatical about windsurfing, and they went there on vacation and fell in love with the place, a little island called Bonaire.
Oh, yeah?
Dutch island. And, ended up selling everything in California, selling the house, giving the dogs away, and we moved to the Caribbean.
No way.
And then so from 9 years old on, I was in the Caribbean and was able to be in the ocean every day, and windsurfing and surfing were really my things. And fishing. Windsurfing, surfing, fishing were my everyday activities. And then when I was 18, I learned to kite.
Wow.
Yep.
That's pretty awesome. So you spent a long time windsurfing. Did you ever get to a sort of professional level with that, or was it still just a kind of fun thing?
I competed.
Yeah.
I used to do, we used to travel around with my family and do different windsurfing events. And then we started coming to the gorge in the Hood River in the summertime when I was maybe like 12. Maybe I went there, maybe even younger, 11 or 12. And just competed in events like the Gorge Games and local windsurfing events, and never really on a professional level, I guess. More just amateur level. Yeah. But, I grew up competing windsurfing.
Yeah. So you've always had that
years,
competitive nature, I guess.
Yeah.
And then with kiteboarding, you were kind of right there at the beginning, which meant that you got quite good quite quickly. Or in those days, you didn't have to be that good to be.
Yeah. Well, back then the
different.
difference between a beginner and a pro was like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I started kiting. I started kiting in Bonaire in the Caribbean with my dad.
Yeah.
A friend of ours had a 2-line Whippica Classic, and it was like 2001, I think. And we were just on the beach, light wind, too light to windsurf, and a friend of ours was trying to learn how to kite with his kite. He was getting frustrated, and he's like, here, you guys try it. And so we had to go and ended up doing some long swims and had some fun trying to relaunch the kite and figure it out. And then ended up like taking one of my old surfboards and putting foot straps on the deck and made our first kiteboard. And then, just kind of went from there. Yeah.
And so how was it growing up in Bonaire? I mean, it sounds like a dreamy life, I guess, to anyone listening in. Was it as perfect as all that, or was it quite tough leaving California, leaving your friends and shipping over somewhere new?
It was kind of crazy at first because it's a Dutch-speaking island.
Okay.
And so my parents put us straight into school, my brother and I, and we were...
Dutch-speaking school?
Yeah, and we're all Dutch-speaking, and we didn't speak any Dutch when we went there.
It's not an easy language to learn, is it?
We were, I guess my parents figured we were young enough that we would
just soak it up.
And which we did. I mean, it took a couple months of not knowing what the hell was going on in the classroom, and then slowly figuring it out, and then eventually being able to speak Dutch. And we were like I think there were two of us, and maybe we were like 2 of 4 white kids in the whole school. So it's kind of like culture shock moving there. But
a bit of a strange one.
But it was awesome. Yeah, I mean, after we got over the initial 6 months of learning the language and figuring it all out, it was awesome. We were able to, school got out. School was from 7:30 to 12:30 every day.
No way, so it was really early and gave you most of the afternoon.
It gets so hot in the middle of the day, you can't sit in the classroom. So
you have to go in early and get out.
Yeah, you go in early when it's cool and then get school done with for the day.
That's perfect for surfing and kiting and windsurfing and fishing. You've got...
Yeah, so we had the rest of the day to go to the beach. And, my parents were really into windsurfing, so they'd take us to the beach, and we just
windsurfing.
Pretty much just grew up in the water.
Fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then you've always... Were you always with North Kiteboarding when you became a professional rider back in the day? How did that start? Who was your first sponsorship deal?
So I learned on that Whippica Classic, and that was about 2 weeks. And then we got a hold of a Nash kite that we bought or got a hand down from a friend. And then rode that Nash for a while. And then my first kind of sponsor, the first people who actually gave me gear were Slingshot.
Okay.
I knew...
I guess from being in the hood.
Yeah, Hood River. I knew Tony Lagos and another guy, Bob Riviello, who worked at the shop at the time, and Chris Wyman.
Yep.
So they kind of hooked me up with some gear and kind of got me going. And so I rode some Slingshot kites. I think they were the first fuels for 2 months or something. And then I kind of got sponsored by Nash.
Yeah.
Just national, like the U.S. Nash guys. And I rode Nash for maybe 6 months. And then I got a sponsorship deal. My first paying sponsorship was from Gastra Kites.
Okay.
And that was middle of 2002, I think. So it was from 02 to middle of 04, I rode Gastra for those 2 years.
Way back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, way back, yeah. And they were actually great kites at the time. They were really... great jumping kites, the style of riding we were doing back then. It was just all about riding super powered and boosting and going huge. And unfortunately that brand kind of, mismanagement and some other things just didn't really work out. And then I got lucky enough to get on North in 2004. I became traveling and competing. I became really good friends with Jaime Perez. And they would just happen to be looking for someone to help them out with testing and being a team rider. And so Jaime kind of brought me into the North family. And so right as the Gastra thing was coming to an end, I kind of was able to get on North and kind of go from there. And I've been there ever since.
Awesome. I think we met in 2005 at one of the North meetings in Egypt. I think that was when I first met you.
Yeah.
Ras Sudra. That was a fun trip. And you had a pro model board with North for a while, didn't you?
Yep.
Was that something that you worked on the shape, or was that something that they created for you and put your name on it?
No, I worked on that shape.
So that was kind of the start of your shaping prowess, or did it start before then?
I've kind of always been, even before kiting, I was always kind of tinkering with surf shapes and stuff. I, grew up surfing and windsurfing, and I don't know. I always kind of played around with. I think I shaped the surfboard when I was 14 for the first time. Just hand shaped one and. Nothing, just playing around with, trying to create something. But I guess when and then I did some boards with Gastra as well. Okay. That I designed together with Jonah Lipak.
And they were the twin tip.
They were twin tip
style sort of boards. That
we did one board that was like a mutant, just kind of popular at the time, kind of half directional, half twin tip. So I'd had some experience with doing boards before that, but really when I got with North, that was when I guess really started to get
work
more into it. So Till and I created the first Sky Pro model twin tips. And actually the first one we did was under Fanatic.
Yes.
When Fanatic still did kiteboards.
I remember that.
04, 05. And then I think in 05 or 06 we did the first Pro model North Skyboard. Yeah.
And went for that. And so were you working on other shapes across the range as well, or were you just working on your shape when you started working on them?
I think we were, I'm trying to think.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, I think, Jaime was doing his Pro model, and so we were kind of, I was helping Jaime with testing with his, he was helping me with mine. I think at that point, John Amundsen was still doing like the Dragon boards and some of the other twin tips. So I think I was working on a couple different shapes.
So you're working on that. And obviously it must be quite different because a twin tip, is a very different shape to a surfboard. So are there similarities in what you're trying to achieve and things like that, or is it quite a different process?
I mean, it's different in some ways, but it's like any product, I guess. It's a lot of trial and error and trying to, try something and kind of getting a benchmark and kind of knowing, okay, this is where we need to be and we want to improve on this, and then you just kind of set about trying to
see what works.
Wrap your head around what works and go from there. So it's kind of the same process, but different style of board, obviously. Yeah,
and now you look after the entire surfboard range for Duotone. You've obviously recently launched the new brand and used to do North. You've got your shaping set up in Maui, right?
Yep.
And how long have you been doing that now for them?
So I took over all the surfboard, all the directional design in 2010, I think.
Okay.
Something like that, somewhere around that time. Like 8 years. And initially I was doing a lot of it in Australia when I was living down there. And then we just moved to Maui permanently in 2013.
Okay.
And bought a piece of property there and built a house. And it was kind of always my dream to have my own little mini factory set up, my own little facility where I could build boards. So in I guess maybe 3 years ago I kind of got that finished and built a CNC machine and got the whole setup, and so now I'm fully self-sufficient and I have my own facility on my property and I can do everything right there.
That's pretty cool. You were in Western Australia, wasn't it, down at Margaret River? You were living down there with Kristin for a while.
Yep.
How did you find that vibe? It's quite an interesting sort of spot, isn't it?
That place is amazing. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, we went there initially. We used to test when I first got on North in 04, 05. We were testing in Hawaii, and that's back when Jaime was doing a lot of testing together with Ken, and they used to rent a place on the North Shore of Oahu and test over there. But winters can be kind of sketchy for wind.
Yeah.
It's not really the windy season, and that's really the time when we needed to be pumping out a lot of prototypes and testing, and especially back in those days when the development was happening so quickly, and we needed to be on the water every day. So we ended up going to Western Australia to find wind, and we were in Perth for a while, and we went up north, and then finally went down to Margaret River, and when we kind of found that place, it was just like magic. I fell in love with the place right away, and it was windy every day, and there's waves, and there's like uncrowded beaches, no one around, so it was, especially in those days, we needed to be kind of secretive with our testing and stuff, and we could go to beaches where there were no people and no cameras, and
no one would be taking pictures or getting stuff up online sneakily.
Nothing showing up on Kiteform, and we were trying some weird stuff back in those days with kites. And, it was cool. So that's how we discovered Western Australia, and I ended up being there from I guess 06 until 2013. I pretty much spent every summer there 4 or 5 months a year. Yeah,
pretty awesome spot to base yourself. And I know it's awesome. The wind there is incredible. It's like switches on like a
it's just like a switch every day. Boom, it's windy, and there's always somewhere you can drive. There's coastlines facing northwest and south. So depending on the wind direction, you can just drive around the Cape and find another spot where it's windy.
And there's always good swell from the Southern Ocean as well. So the waves really
even in the summertime, there's always waves. There's always some kind of swell. So
how was the surf scene there? Because they can be quite localised. The famous Australian surfers.
Yeah, it's an interesting vibe. Yeah, they're all tough. No. No, that's it's. I guess it's like anywhere. They have their spot, and it's such a magical place. I can see why they can get a little grumpy when outsiders come in, and But yeah, I ended up making some really great friends there that I'm still friends with now, and yeah, it's
becoming
awesome
almost a local in yourself, I guess, if you're there for that long.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, I'd never truly be a local.
Never a true blue, but
No.
yeah, maybe get close to it.
Yeah.
And so the move to Maui, what inspired that as a location for you guys to head to? Was that somewhere you'd always wanted to be, or was it just something that came about?
We'd always tested there, like from, even back when it was based in Oahu. A lot of times we'd fly to Maui, on a forecast, like, oh, there's not enough wind in Oahu, fly to Maui for 2 days, test kites. And then even when we ended up going to Australia, it was kind of always, we would test actually in the gorge in the summertime, because Ken Winter still had a house in the gorge back then.
Yeah.
So we actually would split the year between the 3 locations. We'd be in the gorge in the summertime, and then Maui spring and fall, and Australia in the Australian summertime.
Yeah.
And then that just became a lot of work.
I was going to say, that's a lot of traveling, yeah. And then I guess with testing kits, you must have had a lot of stuff that you were dragging about as well.
Yeah, we were dragging tons of board bags, and, like Ken had his house in the gorge, and then we had a house in Margaret River, and then Ken ended up selling his house in Hood River at some point and buying a house in Maui. And then, so the gorge was kind of out, and then it was split between Maui and Australia, and then, I don't know, it just kind of became clear that we didn't really need to do that much moving around and traveling.
Yeah.
So Maui just became the easiest and most convenient place to do it.
And how tough was it to get a place on Maui? Because it's quite an expensive and difficult place
it's
to sort of move to. It's a really
expensive place, yeah. We got super lucky, actually, because we sold our house in Australia in, I guess, 2013.
Yeah.
2013. And that's kind of just as the real estate market was kind of crashing in Australia.
So you got it at the right time.
And it was kind of on the upswing in the US. And it was just a lucky transition that we were able to.
And you bought just literally a plot of land, didn't you? And then built everything on it.
Found this piece of land that was just completely overgrown by jungle, and it was a foreclosed, like bank-owned piece of property, so it was below market value. And it was kind of a lengthy process.
I remember seeing some pictures of you. I remember seeing pictures of you and Kristin. It was just like stood in the jungle going, we've got our property.
That's kind of how it was, yeah.
And then you literally had to clear the whole thing and work pretty hard on it.
We basically just started from scratch. And
did you guys build the house, or did you have people
We
help?
built the house, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
My dad's a builder, so I grew up building with him. So when I was a kid, whenever I wasn't on the beach, I was like mixing concrete for my dad or helping him on the job site. And so I had some building experience from that. And so when we were getting ready to build, my dad flew over for like 3.5 weeks, and we did the rough frame of the house and got kind of all the technical stuff done with his help. And then Kristin and I have been working on it ever since.
And how long was it from buying the property and owning this jungle piece of land to actually being able to move in and sleep a night in the house there?
Well, we actually...
Or did you camp?
We camped. So
Brilliant.
At the time when we got the property, we were renting this little studio apartment for way too much money. And we're budgeting for the house and going, okay, there's no way we can afford to continue to live in this little studio
and build
pay
a house.
Rent and build a house. So we're like, okay, we'll go to Walmart, we'll buy a tent for $350. We'll just camp on the property until the house is done. So that's what we did. So we camped for like 4.5 months.
Wow.
Without power or running water.
Wow.
And roughed it for like 4.5 months. And
that must have been great fun.
It was great motivation to get the house done.
Yeah, I guess you're literally sitting there going, well, if we don't get it done soon, we're going to be in this tent for another night.
Yeah, we'd wake up every morning and go, okay, we got to get shit done today, because it's one more day that we're going to have to be camping if we don't. So.
And you've kind of turned it into a bit of a farm, haven't you? So you've got animals and stuff like that, and you live in quite an interesting style of life, I guess, where you're not going to the shops and buying heaps of stuff. You're trying to be self-sufficient.
Yeah, it's we're trying to be self-sufficient. Honestly, it's like to really run. We figured out over the last 5 years to really be self-sufficient. It's a full-time job and a lot of work, which we don't really have time for. Obviously, we both have other jobs and we're working a lot. So we actually just recently got rid of our goats and gave them to some friends who live across the street, because kind of became a lot of work to have them. But we did, for a while there, we had like 7 goats, and we were milking them, and like making. Kristin was making goat cheese, and we had like all these chickens. We had, at one point, we had like 50 chickens, and we were selling eggs, and like
fantastic.
We had like an aquaponics system, growing vegetables, but recently, like in the last year and a half, we've downsized that a lot.
Yeah,
so we no longer have the goats, and we have only like 8 or 10 chickens now, just enough for our
eggs
own,
for you guys.
Yeah, our own eggs. And we have bees, so we have honey from the bees, and we have a lot of fruit trees on the property now that are starting to get mature that we planted like 5 years ago.
So you get your own fruit, your own
So we
veg.
get fruit, we grow some vegetables. It's funny enough, it's actually really tough to grow vegetables in Maui.
Oh, really?
Or we found, I don't know, I don't really have a green thumb. But with the tomatoes, there's a lot of insects that eat them and stuff, and we don't want to use any kind of pesticides. So yeah, it's surprisingly kind of tough to. I mean, we found out that it's really tough to be self-sufficient, but we try to do as much as we can.
Yeah, the best you can. That's really cool. It's quite a different way of doing things.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the updates over the years on Facebook when I've checked in and seen them. I thought, good, kudos to you guys for giving it a good go.
Yeah.
And getting back to shaping a little bit more, because I know that's kind of your main passion. How long do you spend working on new shapes and things like that? Is it kind of like that's your full-time role? You're always looking at developing stuff, or sometimes you go for a few weeks without anything on the shaping table while you're just enjoying the fruits of your labour?
Yeah, it depends. It's kind of comes in waves sort of throughout the year. Like,
good pun.
Sometimes, yeah, exactly. That's good. No pun intended. Yeah. No, I mean, it kind of it's always there. It's always like it's a constant evolution, I guess. It's but it kind of sometimes we'll be more focused on, like lately we've been really focused on hydrofoils. And so boards are kind of on the back burner for a month or so. And then, and then we'll be working on kites. So depending on the time of year, when it's crunch time to be finishing the Neo, we're focused on finishing the Neo and then the Rebel or whatever. And so. And
you still work quite a lot on testing the kites as well, I guess.
Yeah. So my main thing is kite testing with Ken. So, Ken lives probably 15 minutes away from me.
Okay.
And so I test kites with him like,
all the time.
Pretty much on a daily basis, like, 3-4 days a week. And then obviously I'm always working on boards. We're working a lot on hydrofoils lately. So whatever the top priority is for that specific time, that's what we're working on.
That's what you're working on.
Yeah, it's pretty much full time between all those products.
And it's quite a tough job testing kites, because there's a lot of stuff you've got to do in terms of just go out, change the settings, come back.
Yeah.
Go out, change the settings, come back.
Yeah, it's
write
just
down
time.
what
It's
it does.
just time consuming. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of trial and error and just, but it's all in the testing. Like all the products we're doing, it's all about just spending a lot of time.
Yeah. The more
trying different things and figuring out why things are working and why they're not. And
the more time you spend doing it, the better the end product is, I guess. And that's what keeps you ahead.
Yeah.
And do you get much time to kite surf and surf for yourself and like enjoy your own time on the water where you're not testing and you're not working, or is it sort of just rolled into one kind of full-time thing?
I think I've kind of gotten to like, if there's really good waves and the conditions are great, I'll fully go for fun and just like, but it seems like there's always something to try, and I think it's kind of gotten to the point where that's part of the fun in kiting for me now is like, if I just go ride the same gear all the time, I'm like, it gets a little boring. I want to have something new to try. I'm always kind of searching for something.
So you kind of enjoy that.
I kind of enjoy that, yeah. So even if it's a really good wave day and I'm going for fun, I'll, put in a new set of fins and see how they work, or try a different board that maybe I haven't tried in those types of waves yet. Yeah. So there's always something, I guess, that I'm trying.
Always something to be working on. And you're obviously quite a skilled shaper in terms of the surfboard. Some of the shapes you've been putting out have been really well received and exceedingly popular. How long do you think it's taken you to kind of achieve that level of excellence when it comes to shaping? Is it something that...
I don't think I've achieved any type of excellence. Thanks for saying so. But, I don't think it's anything you never master it. It's not... you just try and keep making it better if you can.
So it's like a constant evolution that your next shape is your best shape, but then your next shape is still your best shape. And
so, I mean, the thing is, like, you could take a good board from 5 years ago. It's still a good board. It's not going to stop being a good board just because it's 5 years old. But I don't know. You're always searching for something new and different and a different feeling, and so it's always constant evolution in that way. And it's not something that you ever like master.
And you must get quite involved with the construction choices as well, because that's changed quite a bit recently
that's
in terms
changed
of
a lot,
your pro model boards. How do you decide that you're going to change the whole construction? How do you test it? How do you reach that goal?
Well, yeah, that's just also been an evolution over the last 5 years or so. Like, I guess we did the first pro construction without foot strap inserts 4 years ago. And that was kind of the beginning of where we are now, which is kind of going, lighter, reduced construction, as light as possible, and as close to a, custom kind of feel as possible. And that's all really customer and rider driven. People want to have boards that feel like authentic surfboards that have really good flex. And the challenge there has always just been finding a construction that feels good and is still strong enough to withstand the forces of kiting. So it's actually a really difficult thing to achieve.
And are you sort of led a little bit by the factories that you work with and what they're capable of producing as well, or can you sort of move to a different factory if they've got better construction?
Yeah, I mean, we actually did switch factories last year because we had the possibility to have a totally new construction with a custom finish and a clear lamination. We're constantly looking at different places we can produce, and we're really happy with where we're at now at the factory. They're able to do some really cool stuff, and we see a lot of possibilities going forward with them. So, that's all these facets. It's not just like you can do any layup you want, but then you have to also produce it at the right price, and so there's a lot to it. Yeah, I guess
every little bit you add on adds dollars to the overall cost of the product, and then you do that over several thousand boards. Suddenly,
you don't want to be retailing boards for $2,500.
Yeah, crazy money. Yeah. And what's the process of say coming up with a new shape? Obviously, you hand shape them in your facility at your house, so you're working with a foam blank and sanding it down and creating something, and then obviously you're creating that surfboard, glassing it up, making it. How does that go from, I guess, an idea in your head being tested and then into a factory, into a customer's hands? What's the process for that?
I guess it's always, it all starts with a concept and knowing, okay, creating a target, or what do we want a board to do, and that can come from a lot of different directions, I guess. So it could come from a team rider saying, hey, I want, this board, feels this way and I want it to do something different, or customer feedback, or seeing something that someone else is doing and going, oh, that looks pretty cool, and trying it and trying to search for that feeling. Or so, I don't know, there's a million different ways an idea can come about. But basically we create a target and go, okay, this is the goal we want to achieve with this board, and we just set about making prototypes. And I actually have a CNC machine at my place, so
do you design
everything's
it in
computer designed.
CAD?
And then design it in CAD.
Send it to the CNC machine, and that pops a shape out.
Yep. So I have my little setup. I can design it all on the computer, and then just basically put a blank on the machine, and it mills it out, and then I hand finish it. So basically what I'm doing is prototyping just the shapes at my place. Yeah. And then once we zero in on the shape that we want to have through, sometimes it takes 5 prototypes, sometimes it takes 20. You never really know. Sebastian Ribeiro came over last winter and spent a month with me. And we were making boards every day, and we got through a bunch of prototypes together with Patry also, and Ayrton dropped in for a week. And to have those guys around was really cool because we were able to quickly, go through a bunch of shapes and zero in on what we wanted and what they wanted. And so, once we dial in the shape, then we're working towards making a finished file, basically. So that's the advantage of doing it in CAD. Yeah. Is that we can...
A file that you can send to the factory.
Exactly.
And make it work
so we go through all these prototypes and we're zeroing in on the whole thing, and what we end up with is a digital file of the board that we can then transfer to our production in China. Yeah. And and it's going to be exactly the same. And then we start setting about doing the construction.
And has that changed in recent years in terms of the technology that you can get to that point where you can just send them a file and they can make it? Or, in the old days we sending them a blank in a very very secure box, hoping it didn't get damaged on the way there.
You used to have to send a master plug and they would mold it, and then there'd be an increase in thickness, and then you'd have to dial
slight
it in.
Changes and So
I guess it's pretty amazing now. Like we can do a whole range, and I can send it all, files in an email, and they have it. And once of course, there's still some follow up. I go to China a couple times a year to follow up and make sure everything's right.
And I guess once you've got the digital file, then it's backed up somewhere. It's not going to get damaged and lost. Whereas when you've made the final shape, you're like, don't damage this board.
Exactly. The team rider tries it and snaps it.
Yeah, and you're like, no, it's taken me ages to get to that point.
Gone. Yeah.
How did you learn all the CAD stuff? Was that something that you had studied before at school, or just something that you picked up along the way?
I just needed to learn it. Just like anything, I think like any skill I've acquired, it's like just necessity.
And when did you start getting into that?
I started designing, I guess, in like 2008, 2009. I was designing with the AccuShaper program, which is a pretty easy, simple program to learn. And then just kind of went from there. Yeah, and you keep working on it. And I guess as the technology changes, you're updating your skill set and working on new stuff. And and there's a lot of really cool programs now that are really easy and intuitive to use, and they're amazing tools.
Awesome. Yeah. You've got the new board, the Provoke, which is kind of like an Ayrton Cozzolino weapon for his strapless freestyle and stuff like that. What's the difference between a board like that and a surfboard for riding waves? Is there much difference to it, or is it just kind of a shape that Ayrton wants because that's his style?
The Provoke is pretty different. It's we developed it for his style of riding, or for the strapless freestyle riding that's going on now. The idea came from Ayrton himself. It was actually like 2 years ago when he started to do like these powered handle passes and stuff. He was finding that when he was using a normal surfboard, he was landing and like bouncing out on the landings and wasn't able to stick his landings as hard as he wanted, like he could on a wakeboard. So he basically wanted to just have like a board with a surfboard rail and with volume, which he's used to riding, but with a landing and speed of like a wakeboard. Yeah. So I thought it was a really cool idea. It was unique. It was something that no one else was really doing. And so I made a few prototypes for him, and he ended up liking one of them and traveled around with it and took it back to Italy and was, free riding with it outside of the competitions and really loving it. And then he ended up snapping that board. And then I got an email from him, I broke the board, you got to make me another one. And then he had a few suggestions for changes. And so it was actually a pretty long process that we weren't really, it was kind of outside of the development thing. Like no one really kind of knew we were working on it, I guess. It was just kind of between him and I. And then we kind of got to a point where he really was loving the board and wanted to have it. And then we almost were going to do something last year, but we ended up not putting it in the range. And then I made him one more prototype that was even better. And then especially with the tour this year with strapless freestyle, we felt like it was the appropriate time to launch it. Yeah. And there was actually a market for it. Yeah. So that's why we came out with it this year.
What's the difference that makes it able to handle those landings? Is it a flatter rocker? Is it less volume? What's the...
it's a combination of, for the landings, really it's the flatter rocker and the bottom shape, the channel, which kind of splits the water. Yeah. So you're not kind of just landing on a big flat surface, but it's more like a wakeboard where you're landing and absorbing that shock through splitting the water. And then just the flatter rocker gives it a lot more speed and a lot more stability, and the wide tail gives it a lot of pop. Yeah. So it's really tailored towards that style of riding, going super fast, getting tons of pop for takeoffs, and then having that fast, hard landing. Yeah.
Nice. And is Ayrton riding the production boards now? Is he riding?
He's riding the full-on production boards. Yep.
Yeah. That's quite a good testament to.
Yeah, it's really cool.
The products.
I mean, that's a really big accomplishment, I think, because all of our team riders are riding full-on production boards in competition, and it's
a good thing to have, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it used to be that they wanted lighter custom boards, and now they're actually using our full-on production models, which is great.
I guess that means you've reached a level with the production boards that's that spot which is good enough for the pro riders to actually say, these are working, these are great, we like those, which is then great for the customers, because the consumer's getting the same board that Sebastian's riding, or Ayrton's riding, or Matthew's riding.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, which is a good place to be. Mm-hmm. You've obviously done lots of travelling over the years, and probably seen more board bags than most. Do you miss that now that you're kind of based in Maui, or do you still travel quite a bit, or are you sort of quite happy where you are?
I'm pretty happy to stay home these days, but I still travel a bit. Nothing like I used to, but I do a few big trips a year. Usually go to Europe at least once a year, and but it's pretty nice just to be home. Maui's not a bad place, so yeah, I'm not too fussed about it.
And you're getting quite into the surf foiling over there, which is a big kind of movement that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Are you working on shapes for that as well, for the hydrofoils?
Yep, a lot. Yep, that's been a big focus. I got really excited about hydrofoil surfing about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And it's just been kind of exploding in Maui. There's people supping and surfing, and just, I think the really cool thing about it is just being able to surf waves that we never even would have considered surfing before, and having so much fun, like on knee-high, crappy little waves. And the cool thing about it is when you go to the beach, you always get a session if you're going hydrofoil surfing. Whereas if you go surfing, like traditional surfing, I find that I end up driving around checking spots, and it's too crowded or the waves aren't perfect or whatever. That never happens with foiling. Like, you go to the beach, if there's any kind of wave, you're out there and you get your session.
And you're having fun.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
And do you find you get more waves with a hydrofoil than you do when you paddle surfing?
Oh yeah, way more. You can take any wave you want.
Yeah. So you're not being so picky about, maybe not this one. It's like, waves coming, I'll have it.
Waves come and go, yeah. And you can catch multiple waves with not having to paddle.
You
can catch one wave, and if it's not real good, you can kick out right away and pump out to the next one. And so you can actually catch the first wave of the set, ride it for a little bit, kick out, pump over the second one, and catch the third wave. And
pretty bonkers.
You can kind of get your pick of the litter.
Do you think, Maui's obviously been a birthplace for so many sports over the years, and the surf foiling certainly seems to be really hot. When I was chatting to Pete Cabrera a while back, he was waxing lyrical about it and saying how much he loves it. Do you think it's something that can transpose from Maui to the wider masses? Is it something that you think we'll be seeing everywhere?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, it's going to open up all kinds of places where surfing probably didn't even exist before.
Because it's just more accessible to go on crappy waves, I guess.
Yeah, you don't need anything really. Yeah, you need a tiny little rolling lump of water and you're having a blast.
Yeah.
So, from like behind boats, surfing boat wakes, even on like lakes or like waterways where there's, ships coming through, you could surf the tanker waves. Like, you don't even need to be on an ocean with waves to foil. But then, all across Europe, the North Sea, where there's, pretty small, crappy little onshore waves, that's like foil heaven.
Yeah, so suddenly it becomes like a good spot.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Awesome. It's certainly something that seems to be taking over. It'll be interesting to see how it develops over the years.
Yeah.
And Duotone going to have a range of surf foils? Is that going to be on the cards?
I think we'll be seeing that in the future, yeah, for sure.
And you're working on those shapes at the moment?
Yeah, right now we just are releasing a new wing under Fanatic.
Okay.
And so that's going to be a surf and SUP wing, and we're going to be adding more wings in the near future. And then I'm sure next year we'll probably see a lot more stuff under Duotone as well.
Because they're quite fun to kite on, those surf foil wings, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because they're so big and stable, and they foil in like nothing. I rode one, I was in Sardinia, and company there had one, and I thought, this is going to be horrible to foil on with a kite. Yeah. And actually it was just a blast. Like,
it's awesome.
You couldn't not fall off the foil. Like, you're doing your jibes and you hit 5 knots and it's still going. Yeah, it's just, it's really good fun. So
yeah, it's awesome.
I could see it being something that opens up where people buy a surf foil and they use it for kiting and they use it for surfing, and it's got that kind of duality to it that they can do both.
Yeah, depending on your style, you can buy like the super fast one if you're more into racing kind of thing, or if like you can have a crossover one that you surf and foil on. And I think the cool thing about foiling is that it kind of bridges the gap between all these sports and extends the range of every sport. So whether it's windsurfing, you can go in lighter wind, or kiting in lighter wind. Suddenly you don't need to buy a big kite anymore. You can just add a hydrofoil to your quiver. Or for surfing, you no longer need great waves. You can just have a hydrofoil, and then you can ride knee-high waves and have fun, or supping, or downwinding. And it just kind of like opens up a whole new world across all these sports.
And are you looking at different shapes for the surfboards that you're riding with these? Are they quite radically different to a standard surfboard?
They're really different, yeah.
What are you looking for in those shapes?
Right now we're like trying to make them really as short as possible, as functionally possible. So the advantage of having a short board is it fits in the wave better, and it's also easier to pump because you have less nose to bring up and down. It's less physical to pump. So basically the boards we're making now are kind of really short as possible, packing in as much volume as possible, so they're still really easy to paddle. And then on a short board like that, the rocker is really important. So you don't have too much rocker that's pushing water. You want it to still glide so you can get into the wave quickly or easily. And then also just the actual bottom shape of the board and the way that the foil is mounted on the board. So like a traditional surfboard that has a lot of rocker, you try to put a foil on there and the foil is actually operating at the wrong angle, so it's really difficult to paddle. Okay. So optimizing that actual mounting surface and getting everything at the
makes a big difference.
So as you're paddling, you're actually starting to get lift from the foil, and it makes it easier to actually get into the wave.
And I guess because, traditionally surfboards, the longer it is, the easier it is to paddle, the earlier you catch the wave. With the hydrofoil on the bottom, that kind of takes that away, because the hydrofoil is kind of in that power zone of the wave. So it's giving you that push. So you don't need that length. So you can kind of get away with something a lot smaller.
Exactly, yeah.
It's certainly interesting times. It'd be, quite good to see it develop.
Yeah.
And what's your sort of main passion at the moment? I know you're a keen surfer, fisherman, kiteboarder, windsurfer, everything. What's your one thing that if you could only do that one thing, which one would you choose right now?
Oh, I don't know if I could only do one, but I think I still have the most fun on the water if I'm really powered on like a 7 or 8 meter kite and there's big surf. I think there's no greater feeling than just going full speed down a wave with the power of a kite and just belting huge turns or getting barreled, or I think that's the ultimate. That's the ultimate feeling for me. But beyond that, I've been really excited to go hydrofoil surfing lately. So doing downwinders in Maui, like in the open ocean with big wings, or just riding like small waist high stuff on a tiny little board. That's kind of the second best. So,
nice. And do you still find you get lots of time to have fun on the water in between all the work and the shaping and everything else?
I don't get on the water quite as much as I used to, but I'm still in the water every day.
Yeah.
Because I'm always testing something or whatever. But a lot of it's focused around work and testing. And I kind of pick and choose my days where I go and have fun. When the waves are really good and the conditions are great, I'll stop everything I'm doing and go kiting if the waves are good.
And what's your vision of the future right now for you as a person? You're going to carry on shaping boards and testing kites, and
there's so many different directions right now that we're going, and it's really cool just to have all these projects and have opportunities to work on all this kind of stuff, and the foiling thing's kind of just ramping up and getting started, and I think for the next 5 years we're going to see a lot of development in that world, so I'm really excited about that. And surfboards and kite surfboards and SUPs, and there's a lot of fun stuff to work on.
Yeah, so many things to shape, so little time.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And are you happy right now, Sky? Are you in a place where you think, my life's pretty good, I'm fairly content with everything?
I'm happy with where I'm at, and no complaints, really, I guess.
Any regrets over the years? Anything you think, I would have done that differently, or had I made a decision there that would have changed the way things have gone, or you think you've done all the right stuff at the right time?
No, I mean, there's things that maybe I would have done differently, but I think you only learn from your mistakes. I mean, that's when you really learn, is when you do it the wrong way, not the right way, so you know what to change next time. And so, no regrets, just learning experiences.
Really. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, I think. I like that. It's quite a poignant way to perhaps end. Learn from your mistakes, as said by Sky Solbach. Sky, thanks very much for that.
Thanks
for taking the time.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that one. I hope you did too. It was great to sit down and chat with Sky. He's a good friend of mine, and I don't get to see him often enough. I'll be back next week with another great episode for you. Until then, you've been listening to Ruchater and the Intriguing Beings podcast. Don't forget to share it with your friends, give us a like on social media, and if you feel like it, rate it with 5 stars on the app. Have a great week.